everyone. Welcome to our Industry Insiders with Goway series. Industry Insiders with Goway podcast series is where you can hear and learn from the best in the industry, pick up insider tips and tricks, follow the stories of proven and successful travel industry professionals, all the while journeying into the exotic worlds of Goway. Today we're talking to Julia Louw, Head of Leisure Tourism WESGRO. I'll let Julia explain what WESGRO is, and as she does that, I would also ask her to tell everyone who's listening today who she is, what WESGRO is, and what we're going to talk about today.
Super. Thanks, Don. I suppose good morning for you and good afternoon for me. Good evening already. Hi, everybody. My name's Julia Louw. I'm Head of Leisure Tourism at WESGRO. WESGRO is the tourism, trade and investment promotions agency for Cape Town and the Western Cape. So we ensure that our trade partners understand the destination and that the destination is sold and ensured to be seen as a world-class tourism destination. So we have a very big job at our hands, but we also have a beautiful destination to work with. Thank you, Don.
Without a doubt. And as people may be able to tell, Julia has a South African accent, and she's actually talking to us today from South Africa. Whereabouts in South Africa are you at the moment?
I am based in the beautiful Mother City. I am looking at Table Mountain in front of me and to the harbour to the left of me. So on the 18th floor of our building here in Cape Town.
There you go. So Cape Town, which is the heart of the Western Cape, which we'll discuss today. So just a bit more background, Julia. Are you born and bred from Cape Town or somewhere else in South Africa?
No, not from Cape Town, Don. I'm born and bred from the Eastern Cape, from a little town called Goway, or originally known as Port Elizabeth. And then I moved to Cape Town when I started my studying or my career around 25 years ago.
All right. So is there any pushback that you're promoting the Western Cape and not the Eastern Cape?
No, actually, Don, we always promote brand South Africa. South Africa comes first. I then just push the Western Cape more. But ultimately for us here at WESGRO, it's about brand South Africa because we want the entire country to be front and center.
Of course. And for those who may not know, South Africa is probably one of the most popular destinations in all of Africa. Generally, it's broken up into Southern Africa, which South Africa takes up a large chunk of, then Eastern Africa. We have West Africa and, of course, Northern Africa, which is generally lumped in with Tunisia, Morocco, and Egypt. But we're talking south. We're talking very south, Cape Town and its surrounds, which is generally referred to as the Western Cape. So, without stating the obvious, as I sort of just did, where is the Western Cape within South Africa, and what does it encompass?
Super. Thanks, Don. So the Western Cape being right down at the southernmost tip of Africa, if you'd like to say, we call Cape Town the hook because most people know Cape Town and understand Cape Town. Within the Western Cape itself, we actually have 6 regions, the Cape Town Metro being one of them. Then we have the West Coast, we have the Cape Winelands, we have the Overberg region, or maybe for people that have been here before know about Hermanus and where the whales migrate to every single year. Then we have the Garden Route and the Klein Karoo, and then we have the Cape Karoo, which is a very arid region right in the middle. And I'm sure for all of the listeners today, we can gladly share lots of information and maps and toolkits around all of the different regions within the province.
100%. And what we normally do with our podcast is this is all videoed as well. So for some of the key points, like where it is, the different areas that Julie just mentioned, we will put up some imagery as well. If you are listening, just grab a map while you're listening or give us a call. We can obviously lay out where everything is that Julie's mentioning. But on that note, you mentioned Cape Town being the hook of Western Cape. The other area you mentioned, which I know a lot of people will probably know of just due to its fame, whether they've been there or not, is the Garden Route. So relatively speaking, because people think Western Cape, they're thinking west of somewhere. But if you look at a map, it's actually, if you use Cape Town as a center point, you're talking west and east of Cape Town, which is the Western Cape, correct?
Yes, correct. So the Garden Route would be west-east of Cape Town, as you just said. So for those of the listeners who maybe know, if you're driving from Port Elizabeth down the Garden Route, you'd be mapping your way to Cape Town. So yes, it's on the west-east coast of the Western Cape.
Right. So just to jump around a bit here, what is a comfortable drive for someone doing a trip to drive the Garden Route? How many days should you allocate for the Garden Route?
So for myself personally, Don, I always say at least 3 to 5 nights on the garden route, just because you can map it two ways. You can either go inland on Route 62, which is one of the longest wine routes in the world that you can drive. I stand to be corrected, but I think it's 762 kilometers of supposed wine route. So you can go
Nice.
inland, and then you can go into Oudtshoorn, and you can have a look at the ostriches, and you can visit Kango Caves. And then you can come over the pass down to Neisner, eat some delicious oysters, go to Plettenberg Bay, swim in those blue flag status beaches, and then map your way back up through the garden route. So 3 to 5 days, you can really get a good experience. And our roads are incredible here, really good quality. The only thing, I suppose, is that you're driving on the left-hand side of the road. So I would always recommend getting an automatic and not driving stick.
Yep, fair enough. Stick manual for those. No, actually stick is what they
Stick
do
is
call it
yours. Yeah, we say
in North
manual.
America, but I'm used to the Australian terminology of manual. So what makes the garden route famous? Because again, most people who've never been to South Africa have probably heard of that term, the garden route. I know you mentioned just then a lot of stops along the way, but in general terms, what is so appealing about the garden route?
So the garden route is a nature lover's paradise. Again, as I said, besides the kilometers and kilometers of coastline with incredible beaches, you have the Neisner Forest, which has got hundreds and hundreds of different bird species. You have little hamlets of little beach towns that people can go and explore. It's a golfer's paradise for any of those that are interested in golf, with how many different golf courses that dot the coastline. So it really is just such a fascinating region to discover. And besides that, it's also one of the adventure capitals of the Western Cape, from bungee jumping to paragliding to zip lining through forests. You really can keep yourself, and the kids, if you do have children, that you're accompanying with you, you really can keep yourself busy for days. And for those that just want to sip bubbles and eat oysters, the Plettenberg wine route is becoming almost like a little bubbly route, because there's so many, well, we call it Method Cup Classique, or I suppose the French would say champagne, but MCC produces along that route. So really so many things to do, Don. I don't think we have enough time here today.
No, probably not. So would it be fair to say that if you want to do as much as you can in the Western Cape, doing the garden route is a good way to concentrate into one region of the Western Cape to do as much as possible?
You see, it's a difficult thing for me to say that because, I have many stakeholders in many different regions to keep happy here, Don. No, but I'm kidding. If the beauty about South Africa is that people always come back, and they come back again. They come back for their people, they come back for our culture, and they just come back for the incredible experience that this country has to offer. So yes, to the garden route, but you can also intertwine the regions. Again, you can come up via the garden route and back into the winelands. So if you have a limited time, yes, the garden route is incredible. And if you're willing to get in a car and just go and explore, it's a wonderful region to head out there. But also, if you want to start in Cape Town and end in Port Elizabeth or Goway, which I referenced to earlier, you can do that as well, and then fly out of there back to wherever you came from.
Okay, so you just mentioned in there the term the winelands, and you also mentioned that the garden route has lots of wineries, but the winelands is a region unto itself, correct?
Yes, that is correct. It's known as the Cape Winelands. So it's home to many, many beautiful wine farms and many beautiful estates. And the beauty, again, about the winelands is that we are trying to ensure that we are a world-class wine tourism destination, not from the fact that you drink wine, because you can be a complete teetotaler and come here and still have the best wine farm experience. So that's really important for us, Don. From the gardens of Babylonsturen to going to look at the sculptures, whether you're at Creation, or there's so many different things to do. The wine is one aspect, but the tourism product offering is what makes our wine tourism offering so incredible here within the Western Cape.
Okay, so any choice of a wine visit, be it garden route, the winelands itself, it could be a day trip from your base, wherever that base may be within the Western Cape. But I would assume that most of these vineyards offer accommodation, or a good proportion would offer accommodation if you wanted to have an overnight or an extended stay in a wine, on a winery.
Yes, absolutely. So I know maybe the Italians will reference it as being agri-tourism. We do have very similar offerings here. Many of the wine estates offer accommodation from 3-star right up to your 5-star superior luxury quality that you'll find maybe in the Franschhoek Valley. So there are a variety of options for people to drive overnight. There's also options for people to do the wine tram in Franschhoek, which is an experience where you have a hop-on, hop-off wine tram, which takes you through the vineyards. I've done it myself a few times, and I can say it is an absolute blast to just, I don't know, sip wine carefree while, a tram drives you around the vineyards.
So you don't have to worry about drinking too much and then driving, which is always a good solution.
Drinking and driving. Yes.
Yeah. Well, actually, just on that note, I assume the laws are very strict in that respect. In South Africa, if someone's looking at a self-drive and wanting to drive to the vineyards, obviously drinking and driving is a no-no like everywhere else in the world.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay, so we are bouncing around here a bit on my plan, but this is the whole point of it. We want to just go where the conversation takes us. So we've mentioned self-driving. You just mentioned a hop-on, hop-off bus for the visits to the vineyards and the winelands. What's the best way, easiest way to get around the Western Cape en masse or in total?
So again, referencing our road network, we have an incredible road network. So you have, in my opinion, two options. Either you self-drive, but then again, I think that our currency lends itself to allow for you to have a guided tour where you have a driver and a guide, whether you're with friends or family, a group of you, you get a vehicle, you get a driver and a guide, and that person with their knowledge takes you around the province. So it all depends on the time you have, on, how much stress you want to put yourself under in the sense of driving. I know I love driving where some people hate driving.
Me
so
too. Yeah, I'm
all
with you.
just depends.
Yeah.
It's all up to you completely to what you want to do. So self-drive or a guided drive tour.
Yeah, and I'd like to support Julia on this aspect, not only for the Western Cape, South Africa, anywhere in the world. And again, I think a key point there that Julia brought up is the currency. The dollar's buying a lot of rand at the moment, so it makes it much more affordable. But in Goway's opinion, private guided touring is the best way to go. It is at times more expensive, but I think the rewards you get, and as Julia mentioned, like the actual local knowledge, there's a lot more flexibility in your itinerary, where you stay, how long you stay, the questions you ask, etc. It is definitely the way to go if time and budget allow. And Goway obviously has everything from self-drive options through group touring, through the private guided touring throughout all the Western Cape. Okay, so let's jump back into some of these questions I had laid out. If you're arriving into the Western Cape internationally, what's the main gateway in, or what's the easiest way to get to the Western Cape from North America?
So Cape Town International Airport is our main hub. We have Delta and United Airlines. Obviously, Delta flies from Atlanta 3 times a week, and then triangularly 4 times a week. We also have United Airlines, which is from New York 3 times a week, and then from Washington, D.C. 3 times per week. That's specifically just into Cape Town as an international airport. Domestically within the Western Cape as well, we also have George Airport, which people can then fly from Cape Town to George should they wish to do so. But it's literally a 45-minute little hop of a flight. But internationally, those are the main airlines that are flying into the Western Cape at the moment.
Okay, so a couple of things there. So I'm going to jump back to getting around the Western Cape. Is flying an option to get from point to point, or is not really a need from a distance point of view and or cost?
It's not really a need from a distance point of view. I mean, George is probably around 5 hours from Cape Town if you're driving at a reasonably steady pace. So by the time you've got to the airport, waited in line, checked your baggage in, and again, you're not getting to experience the scenic beauty of the destination, if you're self-driving or doing it yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so that would also suggest that the Western Cape is it is accessible by road, therefore it's somewhat small compared to the size of South Africa as a country. Okay, Absolutely. Now you'd also mentioned that most of the international flights there were coming out of the US. I don't believe there are direct flights from Canada into Cape Town. I think it's all connections via the States or via Europe. Is that true?
Yeah, that is correct. Not at the moment. I know when I was myself in Toronto last year, I flew via New York. So that was the only connection. Yeah.
But I do believe there are direct flights from Canada to Johannesburg. Or
Canada, Johannesburg, I would stand to be corrected. There may be seasonally, but not at the moment.
Not a regular thing. Okay, so sorry, Canadians, it's via the States or via Europe as well, and you can build in stopovers, etc., etc. I know a very affordable option is Ethiopian Air out of Canada. That's a good one to think about for anyone looking at creating an itinerary into South Africa, but flying directly into Cape Town. as well. Okay, we touched on how to get. Okay, so within South Africa, what would be the main cities that people come from if they haven't flown into Cape Town? I think I know the answer, but I'll let you tell us.
You main source markets coming into Cape Town, correct?
Well, no,
So
no.
where
Like if people haven't flown into Cape Town, they've normally flown into from North.
into
They've normally flown into Johannesburg,
yes, correct.
and they might work Johannesburg across to Kruger, which is one of the most famous game parks in the world. And from Johannesburg or Kruger, there are easy connections into Cape Town, or vice versa, Cape Town heading back north. Correct? Yep.
100%. Okay. So whether you use Johannesburg as your hub or Cape Town as your hub, between Airlink flying out of Kruger and Mpumalanga International or Skukuza, there are direct flights into Cape Town. And good news now also is that Fly Safari is now also flying into Kruger and Mpumalanga International. So that's really good to add that connectivity. So you can do a complete round trip, either with Joburg as being your hub or alternatively with Cape Town as being your in and your out. It all just depends on your routing.
Now, I know there are some very picturesque and beautiful train journeys within South Africa. Is there a train that runs out of Cape Town into Cape Town?
So the train that you're referring to, well, there's two actually. There's Robos Rail and there's the Blue Train. So Robos Rails runs from Cape Town up to Pretoria. The last time I remember it was a 2-night journey. They also then do in turn Pretoria up to Victoria Falls, which I stand to be corrected, but I believe it's a 4-night journey, and that is obviously vice versa. So you can also do Robos Rail, and I've done it myself, and it is an absolutely incredible experience to do South Africa by train.
Yeah, and our VP of Africa here, Maura Smith, she's done Robos and Blue Train a few times. She raves about it all the time. It is a very memorable trip. So again, another way to get into or out of the Western Cape, and Cape Town in particular, is via rail. Okay, so we just mentioned Cape Town is the jewel of the Western Cape. It literally almost sits geographically in the middle of the Western Cape. Is that correct?
Well, literally bottom, right down at the bottom. I have a map behind me, but it's a little bit difficult to show it to you.
Well, again, we'll share it. For those
Yeah.
Watching, we'll throw up a map or two to show you where it is. But it's generally speaking sort of bottom, as Julie says, on the coast.
Correct.
I grew up in Sydney, Australia, which I think is one of the most beautiful harbour cities in the world. There are two that I'm going to say Sydney's the best because I'm an Australian, but I think the two that come closest would be, or arguably better, would be Cape Town and San Francisco. But we had to talk about Cape Town, not San Francisco. So why is Cape Town so attractive? Why does it pull so many people in to base themselves for explorations around the Western Cape?
So I'm going to answer as a local and a person that lives here, right? The beauty of having a city within a basin surrounded by mountains and surrounded by ocean. And within 45 minutes, you can find yourself in the winelands. Within an hour, you can find yourself in Amanus looking at whales. Within an hour and 15 minutes, you can find yourself up the coast looking at arid desert with, turquoise blue waters up the west coast. It's the nature, Don, and it's the people. I don't really know how, and the food. I mean, goodness me. Besides that, we have of the best gastronomy in the world. And please don't, I'm speaking as a local again. It's just the combination of the amount of things that you can do here, truly. And again, as a local, maybe I'm being biased when I say this, but it's the people. People come back to South Africa for her people because there is such an incredible community and culture and friendliness. And before you know it, people are inviting you over to their house to come and, well, barbecue, you would say, but braai is what we do here. Yes, correct.
So I can speak to that because through the industry, I have a lot of friends who are South African. Moira, who I mentioned, is our VP of Africa. She's actually from South Africa. And I've not met a South African I've not had an issue with, other than when we talk sport. Then it's a completely different story, particularly rugby. But my time visiting South Africa, it's a very, very friendly country, very, very welcoming. And again, it's, to Julie's point, that makes for any visit to any country, if you feel welcome, feel comfortable, then all the other bells and whistles of Cape Town's point of view, scenery, adventurous things you can do nearby, the beautiful harbour, the fantastic culinary experiences, seafood, obviously a big one, the wines we've discussed, beer choices are good. It's, if you've been to Sydney, it's a similar vibe, but it's South African, of course, and it's got its own little twist to it. And I think what's key there is what Julie's also mentioned, that within an hour and a half, I think you mentioned, at most. You have access to all the typical things of the Western Cape and also of Africa, which leads to my question. If anyone was to come down and just spend their time in the Western Cape, are they able to have a traditional safari experience? Is there wildlife of what people expect, the big five, within easy access of the Western Cape or Cape Town?
Yeah, so we do have a few game reserves within the Western Cape region itself. The majority of them are up the garden route. Actually, there are a few game reserves there which offer big five safari offerings. And then inland as well here within the Western Cape, in what we call kind of the Cape Karoo area. There's another 2 game reserves there. Again, I don't want to mention any names specifically, but yes, I can happily say that within the Western Cape, we may not traditionally be seen as a safari destination, but if you have a limited amount of time, you can easily have an incredible nature-based experience within the Western Cape and see the big five.
Yeah, and this is one that, well, there are 2 reasons I bring that up. One, for the obvious, can you have a wildlife experience if you are to limit yourself to the Western Cape? But 2, to your point, I know you don't want to mention options because there are so many. And I'm planning a trip to Southern Africa next year with my family. And one of our biggest issues is, okay, time is the first thing, of course. And I want to show the kids as many of the famous and well-known sites. But there are so many other areas that are worth time and a visit as well. So I'm just basically waxing lyrically here to say that the Western Cape can give you everything that you would expect from a trip to South Africa and obviously Southern Africa from what we just discussed. Wildlife, wines, cultural history. And on that note, a lot of people will probably know Cape Town, or more specifically Robben Island, which is how far off the coast of Cape Town, Robben Island?
Well, if I look out my window, Don, I can see her right now.
Oh, you can see it? Oh, really?
Probably, I think probably about 2 nautical miles, if that. It's about an hour boat trip out to the island on a clear, good day. Yeah.
And for those who may not know, that's where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 30-odd years, I believe.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, he moved between 2 different prisons, but that was his last base.
His last, right. So, again, there is, for those who are interested in some major political history of South Africa, which is world famous, apartheid. There is some experiences to be had in the Western Cape area, and obviously Robben Island would be one. You can travel out there, as you mentioned, Julia, via boat and do a tour around the prison. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So from a culture and a heritage perspective, obviously there's a lot of historical points within the Western Cape, Robben Island being one of them. We have our the Workharp Museum. There's really a lot of touch points, Don, but then also, up the West Coast, there's something, or we have it, it's called the Cradle of Human Culture. I can again share all this information. There's specific points where we go back to, the life origins of the Khoisan people and where people came from and languages. There really is a lot of interest within culture, heritage, and all of that can be provided here through the destination as well.
Okay, so so not just recent political history, older history as well. On that note, a lot of people will know visually at least, and probably by the name, the Maasai, which are obviously Eastern Africa, Kenya, Tanzania. People through movies, probably more than anything else, will know the Zulu for Southern Africa. Are there any as equally, because the Zulu are not in Western Cape, they're further north, correct?
They're mainly from KwaZulu-Natal, where the Zulu kingdom would be. Yeah, would have come the Zulu people. Yeah, correct.
Right. So if anyone's looking for, I guess, that cinematic Africa of the tribes, does the Western Cape have any of that, either now or historically?
Historically, possibly the Khoisan people or the Bushman people, but from a Cape Town perspective, we're a real mishmash of communities and cultures. If you remember, our history goes back to the Dutch East Indian Company, together with the local people. The Workharp gets all of its heritage from there. So it's a completely different type of cultural heritage to necessarily the more Northern African cultural heritage. But again, equally the same, we're the only place in the world that has our Cape cultural heritage. So very unique in its own standpoint, Don. So to answer your question, yes, not as tribal, but definitely a great cultural heritage based on our heritage and history.
Right, and you actually segued that answer beautifully, because that's what I wanted to point out, that when people think of Africa, they often think naturally of the big five wildlife experiences: Maasai, Samburu, Zulu, if they're looking southern. But South Africa is, again, I don't modern. Well, I guess it's modern because it's the African ancient history now melded with the Dutch, the British, etc. Because Cape Town was originally created as an outpost for people sailing around the Horn of Africa heading off into Asia, correct? And it was, I know for a fact, when the first fleet of Australia headed to Australia, they stopped by Cape Town to resupply, etc. Yeah. So that, in correct. Very general terms, that was why it was, or how it became established, correct, Cape Town?
Yeah, correct. So it also used to be a stopping point, well, for on the route of the Dutch East India Company. So it used to be a lot of trade happened, the spice route. That's why our Cape Malay community has got such an incredible history about the spices and the different spices of the world. You know, so when the Dutch landed here, there was the history of the Malay people and all of their beautiful origins. So it really is, as I referenced earlier, a mishmash of incredible cultures that has come together in the Cape.
So who actually established Cape Town? Was it the Dutch? Were they the ones that set up shop there from a colonial point of view?
Oh, goodness, Don. I'm trying to have to rack my brain historically here, but I stand to be corrected. No, Jan van Riebeeck immediately stems to mind. I say that again, referencing because we're the only country in the world that can reference the birthday of South African wine. And we know that because of a diary entry that was written in Jan van Riebeeck's diary. Today was actually the 365th birthday of that. And it was on the 2nd of February where he wrote in his diary, "Today be the day that we plant the grapes of the Cape," or something like that.
Oh, really?
So I'm gonna use him as my history lesson answer.
Okay.
Again, please don't quote me on this. I could be wrong, but I believe it was him.
Okay. So again, the point being, there's lots of traditional indigenous history, pre-colonial, then there's obviously the colonial, then there's a mix of both indigenous and colonial history, not just Dutch, the English were down there. Like every country, there's a lot of history, very involved history as well.
Absolutely.
From activity point of view, another famous site that people have probably seen on documentaries, etc., is shark diving off the coast, or just up from Cape Town, I believe, not directly off Cape Town.
Yeah,
is that right?
Correct. It's in the Gansbaai, or in the district. The region is called the Overberg region, so it's up that way, so near where Hermanus, where you go see the whales every year. And then you just go a little bit further north up Hermanus, and then you'll find the Gansbaai area where the sharks predominantly are. And then also in the Plettenberg Bay region, which is in the Garden route.
Right. So for those who are interested, you can go. And when I say shark diving, that's in a cage, protected from great whites, which are known to frequent and hang out around southern Africa. There are also options, correct me if I'm wrong here too, Julie, like not near the sharks, but you can go surfing through most of the coastline of the Western Cape. There is just swimming in general off the beaches, kayaking, canoeing, going from the land point of view, particularly out of Cape Town. There's trekking, of course, around the surrounding areas, mountain biking, downhill for a lot of it. And I think Maura also mentioned annually there's was some huge bike ride or trekking. Is there an annual?
Yeah, there is. So we have a few things actually done. So we like to call ourselves the Cape of Great Events because we have so many incredible events that happen in the province, which are actually world standard events in the sense of the amount of participants that they have. So coming up shortly is the Cape Town Cycle Tour or Cape Town Cycle Race, which is happening now in March. We have the Cape Town Marathon. We have the Two Oceans Marathon. It's of the biggest timed cycle races and marathons in the world. Now, I wish again I could show you pictures of the beautiful race route that you run or you cycle. And then we also have something called the APSA Cape Epic, which is a extreme endurance mountain bike race. I think you have to have rocks in your head, quite frankly, to do it. But there are many people from all over the world that come and do this mountain bike race. So yes to Maura's point.
Okay, so there you go. There's lots of events. So a little segue here. So if anyone out there organises groups, there's lots of group travel opportunities for the Western Cape as well. Like, so you have fitness groups, running groups, biking groups, diving groups. There's just straight out diving, again, not with the sharks. safer driving. Mountain bikes mentioned, canoeing. Jumping back to earlier in our conversation when we were talking about being able to stay overnight at winelands, one thing that we've seen, particularly for Latin America, is we get a lot of North American farmers wanting to travel as a group down to Latin America to talk about farming procedures and stuff like that, techniques with those in Latin America. So I know there's lots of farmland around or within the Western Cape. So for our agents out there, if you have a farming group, taking groups of farmers into the Western Cape to hook up with local farmers to chat about farming stuff is another option as well.
Yeah. And just to that point, Don, sorry, because we're obviously the promotions agency for the Western Cape, it's not just tourism. We have investment. We've got agri, edutech, film. There's so many different aspects within WESGRO. So we've many times or liaised with farmers through the Department of Agriculture, again, to your point about people maybe for farming. Film, if people are coming to look to film here or to shoot and need locations, we're a one-stop shop of a variety of things that we can assist people with to try and connect businesses together, or in turn mice or incentive groups that need to speak planting or how to drive a John Deere correctly.
Okay. So again, any of our agents out there who may deal with mice and incentive groups, there you go. There's not just the tourism aspect of it. There's a whole lot of other things, as Julia just mentioned. So on events and happenings, you mentioned a few from the adventure side that are upcoming. Anything in the near future in regards to events or festivals? Obviously something. Actually, let me jump back one step before we answer that question. We should have started with this. For those, again, who may not know, South Africa's in the Southern Hemisphere. Western Cape is about as far south as you can go. So the seasons for Southern Africa or Western Cape naturally in particular, when is your best time to go, not best time to go?
So traditionally our high season would be from November to February. That is a traditional time for people that come to the Western Cape. As a destination, and again, I'm going to speak like a true local, I believe that we're a year-round destination. I think our winters are equally as lovely as our summers, and I'll reference it specifically. So, for example, in August, September, we have the blooms of the wildflowers up the west coast, where the Namaqualand just becomes carpeted in thousands and thousands of Namaqualand daisies. It's something that you can only see here, and it happens at that time of the year. Then from September to November, you have the migration of the southern right whales that come down to Hermanus. In February, it's our secret season because there's no wind. Then we have the beautiful July and August when it's winter and it's perfect for fireside conversations and red wine in the vineyards. So again, it's a completely all year round destination, just depending on what you want or what your client wants or what they're wanting to achieve out of their break, really.
Okay, so if someone was to travel in your winter, which is North American summer, is there anything that they would miss out on due to seasons? Like they could still see wildlife, they could still visit the vineyards, I would assume. So is there anything, is there a big hit and miss by choosing a summer visit, as in your summer visit, over a winter visit? Or can they see everything pretty much year round?
So the only things that you can't really see year round are the migratory aspects, which will be the whales or, for example, like the flowers that I referenced. Yep. But from a destination perspective, the destination is still here. I mean, you may have a day that it rains and you can't necessarily, go outside and explore, but you can do lots of, museums or, things that are more indoor related. You can also then have absolutely perfect days in the middle of winter, which you would think is a summer's day. Well, maybe for the people living in Canada, it will be like a summer's day. So it will be our winter. So you won't really be missing anything necessarily. It'll just be a question of not being 30 degrees, but maybe 16 or 17 degrees.
Okay, so just on that note, what are your average temperatures in winter? Just ballpark?
So in winter, ballpark between 13 and 18 degrees.
Okay, so for Fahrenheit, our Americans out there, it's 55. I'm just typing into my Google. 55 to 64. And summertime around Cape Town would be?
So summertime, the averages are around 24 to 35. I mean, yesterday it was 35 degrees, and I think tomorrow it's 39 degrees, so very hot day tomorrow.
That's warm. Okay, so that's 75 to 95. Is there much humidity? I guess coastal, there wouldn't be a lot of humidity.
No, because we're on the cold Atlantic, so you get that cold breeze coming in. So not a lot of humidity generally. Although this summer it has been quite humid, I must say.
Yeah, unfortunately, weather patterns are very weird these days. So nothing's guaranteed, of course, with weather in general. So again, your summertime, which is North American winter, will be warm, anywhere, say, from 75 to 95. Winter is much more comfortable. And again, as Julie mentions, other than the migratory sights and sounds, you can pretty much see and do everything year-round in the Western Cape, which goes to Julia's point that it is a year-round destination. Okay, so any upcoming happenings for the Western Cape, be it events, be it new choices of travel product, new things to see and do?
From a new product perspective, I would be lying to you if I said we had anything that's really kind of new or hot off the cards. What we're trying to do is position ourselves as a truly gastronomic, I don't know what the right English would
Gastronomic?
be. Like. It's a gastronomical destination.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because of the incredible food offering that we have here. And again, I know we spoke about it earlier, just from a price point perspective, the McDonald index of things. It's so affordable to have an incredible 3-course meal with a beautiful bottle of wine for, not even $100 for 2 people. So
really?
it's quite something. And we're also trying to position ourselves as one of the adventure destinations within the world, as well as golf. Golf is really important for us.
Yeah.
And then also, sustainability is hot on everybody's minds at the moment, and we don't want to greenwash it at all. It's really important. For us, sustainability as a long-haul destination is about the community because, Don, we through tourism, so many people are employed. And for us, we want to ensure that people understand that our sustainability story is creating jobs for people in a community to understand the importance of tourism. So without our tourists, we're not going to keep that beautiful cycle going. So as South Africa, I know we want to ensure that sustainable tourism story is told through the people and the wonderful people that that they just allowed to, I get quite emotional about it. Sorry.
Yeah,
it's just,
good.
Sustainable tourism for us is community and it's tourism for good, and that's why we want to urge people to please keep traveling. And, you may be flying long haul, but I can assure you that you're keeping a great chain of the tourism economy working for a place like South Africa.
And I'm glad you brought that up because Goway does our best to ensure that we are supporting all those programs and our own practices match that as well. And I actually spoke to Grant Folds the other day about Project Rhino, which operates in South Africa. At our recent Africa event, I spoke to a lot of our lodge operators who, apart from selling stunning accommodation choices, which Africa has, like I know we're talking Western Cape, but all of Africa, if you want, it has just amazing accommodation choices. But a good bulk of all these lodge companies and accommodation companies have ongoing local green initiatives, a lot of it community-based as well. So that's an important aspect. And if anyone out there or your clients want to ask about that, because we are seeing more and more questions about, we're talking Western Cape, want to go to Cape Town, I want to go and stay in a lodge and see the wildlife, but I want a lodge that is supporting local communities. I want my local guide to be local, not an American, Canadian, Australian. I want it to be someone like that. So that's coming up more and more, and we endeavour through our partners, obviously WESGRO as well, with its representation to do the same thing, look after our planet for everyone, those present, those in the future. I want to jump back just on the cooking and the culinary thing. I would assume that as part of your gastronomic focus, that if people, again, back to groups, if you have culinary groups, cooking groups, so be it a group or be it an individual, there would be things like cooking lessons, how to do a braai, or how to do, like it's a barbecue, but South Africans do it their way, Australians do it our way. There is opportunities to do cooking lessons and shop with the local, all that type of thing as well.
Absolutely, most definitely. Whether it be, through the Cape Malay and the Boerkaap, or going into our townships and experiencing how to do shisanyama, that's what they call it, when you eat so many different types of meats that are cooked on an open flame, quite spicy. So, yeah, there really are a lot of gastronomical offerings.
Okay, on that note, it just popped in my head when you said that eating different meats. Back in the day when I was a young person traveling, one of the most famous restaurants in all of Africa was a place called Carnivores in Nairobi. Don't think it exists anymore. But that was basically a place where you could eat game meat. Is eating game meat a possibility in the Western Cape?
It is most definitely a possibility. Game meat, anything from your springbok to impala to gemsbok, most of the restaurants that have that type of offering are based here in the Western Cape. We have Gold Restaurant, which takes you through a variety of different countries within Africa on a cuisine feast of sorts. There's restaurants at the waterfront, so yes, you can definitely still experience venison. Yeah.
There you go. Because I many years ago had ostrich in Zimbabwe actually, and I found that to be, I don't know why it hasn't taken off as a more consumable meat internationally, because it was amazing.
Yeah.
Really, really
It's
good.
of the healthiest, I think.
It's
of the healthiest red meats. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a red meat, but looks like, cooks as a white meat, looks like chicken. It tastes like chicken. It was beautiful though. It was fantastic. And almost all the animal is used post slaughter as well, from the leather to the feathers.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
totally off track in the Western Cape.
Totally off track.
Yeah. Are there any ostrich farms in Western Cape?
Well, they would be in Oudtshoorn, so that would be on Route 62. Yeah. So you can go and see the ostrich, see the eggs, see the whole process. Obviously, we don't believe in any form of animal interactions and those kinds of things. It's really important for us, for nature to be nature, and for us humans to be us humans. So again, it's all about that good journey of conservation, sustainability, and just ensuring that we protect the product, which is the natural asset, and the animals.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And as everyone can see or hear, the Western Cape, small, comparatively speaking, to South Africa, but it's got so much going on in it. Cultural, adventure, culinary, vineyards, water-based, land-based, accommodation for any backpacker out there, from hostel all the way through to 5-star luxuries. That includes all the lodges around the many national parks within the Western Cape. Getting around the Western Cape is easy. Self-driving, private guiding, bus touring, small group touring, train journeys connecting Johannesburg and Victoria Falls, which is a big attraction when heading to Southern Africa. So it's got everything in a very small space. Julia, is there anything else you'd like to tell our listening audience about your home region, Western Cape, or your hometown, Cape Town?
Well, Don, I think you can see I'm a very passionate Cape Townian and a very passionate South African. So all I can urge to all the Goway clients and to whoever else may listen to this, come and visit us and come and experience it for yourself, because there is no hospitality like South African hospitality. And just come and see it through our eyes. And I know for a fact that once Africa gets under your skin, you'll definitely want to come back.
100%. I'm heading back for my upteenth trip, hopefully next year in 25. For everyone listening again, Goway has everything we discussed today. We have on our website. If it's not on our website, we can do it. Anything from the ecotourism aspect of it through to just pure luxury and enjoying yourself the whole way through. Private guiding, coach touring, buses, overlanding, which is you can even camp throughout Africa and the Western Cape. It's all there to be had. It's all on our website. Our destination specialists, many of whom are South African, can help you with any inquiries you or your clients may have. Julia is there to support the industry in general. So while we'd like you to speak to Goway, if you do have any questions for Julia, what is a contact number or email? If you just say that, I'll put it up in writing for those visually watching us. So what's your contact information if anyone has any questions?
So it's just hello@westgro.co.za.
Okay, so hello, HELLO.
HELLO at westgro.co.za.
And WESGRO is WSGR.
WESGRO.
At. Okay.
So hello@westgro.co.za. And then I
Yep.
can also share with you, Don, our trade toolkit with all of our maps, our collateral, our content, where everything lives.
Yeah. And again, I'll try and get, after this, I'll get Julia to send that to me as well so we can throw it up on the video version of this as well. But if you need maps, you can come to us, go directly to WESGRO and ask them for it. They will help you out, particularly if it's anything outside of tourism, like the things that Julia mentioned about filming or investment. Go to Julia directly, not to us. We're tourism, but we can help you out there. So on that note, I'd like to thank Julia for her time coming all the way from Cape Town with views of Table Mountain and Robben Island and the ocean, and I've got a view of downtown Toronto out my window. So I think Julie's in a better position literally than I am. Again, thank you for your time, Julie. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Don.